Welcome back. What a volatile housing market we have right now. So for example, Freddie Mac reported last week that 30-year fixed mortgage rates decreased slightly from the previous week, but still is very close to the highest levels since 2001. To make matters worse, home prices overall are still very high. For instance, Redfin reported just a few days ago that despite 7% rates, home prices nationwide are up by 5% from a year ago. Now, part of the reason why home prices are not falling at the same rate we saw last year is due to a very limited amount of houses for sale in the US. So in today's video, I'm going to share exactly what's happening right now regarding home prices, housing inventory, the share price reductions, and much, much more based on my own analysis of Realtor.com's latest data. And of course, due to all the research involved in making today's video, I appreciate you guys sharing this on your social media and of course, hitting the like button as well. That helps support my YouTube channel, which I greatly appreciate. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I have a lot to share here. So this report here is a weekly update I make for you guys regarding my own analysis of Realtor.com's data here. And here's their most recent article here, posted on August 31st, which I did not even read because I'm a housing market data nerd here. Instead, go to realtor.com/research/data, click on this link right here, and it takes you more or less to this information right here. So let's first talk about asking prices in the US because we're seeing some very big changes here, quite the volatility over the past 2 months here. So last week, the median asking price, these are asking prices of newly listed houses, was flat compared to the same week 1 year ago. As a note right there, before that, we had 4 consecutive weeks of year-over-year increases. Also, the decrease in prices on a year-over-year basis was very much short-lived. In fact, it only lasted for 6 consecutive weeks from June 10th through July 15th this year. This decrease in prices was very much short-lived due to the fact that prices were falling much faster at this time last year compared to this year. And now we have limited inventory pushing upward pressure on prices here. However, though, will that change due to the recent rise in rates? The average 30-year fixed rate, according to Freddie Mac, for the entire month of August was around 7.1% compared to around 6.8% in the previous month here. So this is something we should be following here because if asking prices start decreasing again, that would imply that our housing market or closed home sales will decrease in the months ahead as well. All right, so that's home prices. Let's talk about housing inventory or the number of houses for sale nationwide because that decreased by 5.9% compared to the same week of 2022. This, of course, is much different than the giant gains in the range of 50 to 70% that we saw in January through March this year. Also, housing inventory is now down for 10 consecutive weeks compared to the same week 1 year ago due to a low level of new listings hitting the market. In other words, we're not seeing enough people list their house for sale, which is causing housing inventory to decrease compared to 1 year ago. And on top of that, due to the fact that inventory was skyrocketing last year, whereas this year we saw a very small increase so far. Now let me share exactly what I mean by this because here's my own analysis of AltosResearch.com's data here. So 1 year ago, according to them, there's around 553,000 homes for sale. For the week ended September 1st, there was around 509,000. That's a decrease of about 44,000 compared to 12 months ago, or a decrease of 8% year over year. This is much different than the 76% gain we saw in late February. So in late February, we saw a giant gain of almost 80% more homes for sale compared to the previous 12 months. Now it's down by 8%. Now check this out because this is a night and day difference compared to 2022. So right now, there's 38,000 more homes for sale nationwide compared to the start this year, only an 8% increase year to date so far. Compare this to last year at this time, we were up by 260,000 more houses for sale compared to the start of the year last year. That was a giant increase of 89%. And that, of course, is one of the main reasons why home prices were falling so much more last year compared to this year. inventory increasing by nearly 90% last year this time, whereas this year only up by 8%. Inventory has been increasing very slowly though ever since April, which I'll share a chart with you guys here in a little bit. This is mainly due to seasonality, but also due to falling demand as well, as home prices and rates still remain very much elevated. One more thing I do want to mention regarding inventory levels is that even though we're down 8% compared to 12 months ago, we're down by about 50% compared to the same week of 2019. This means we're missing approximately 460,000 houses for sale compared to the same week of 2019. And this, of course, is one of the main reasons why we have a lack of houses for sale, historically speaking here. And here's a chart showing just that. This is altosresearch.com. Right now, around 509,000. 1 year ago, it was 552,000. But at 509,000 right now, this is well below the 946,000 we saw in September 6, 2019. And in mid-September in 2018, there's around 959,000. Also, if we zoom in over the past 2 years or so here, which is right here, look at this. Inventory levels to start the year last year was at 292,000, but by the time we hit this time last year, it was at 552,000, an increase of about 90%. Compare that to this year, though. We started the year at 471,000, and now inventory has been increasing, but we're still only at about 497,000. What I'm really curious about inventory levels this year is that when will we reach the peak? Because in my opinion, due to the fact that we have 7+% rates right now, this will decrease home buying demand, which will likely cause home sales and also contracts being signed to decrease as well, which will actually cause inventory levels to peak later this year. And this is more or less what we saw last year because we didn't peak regarding inventory levels until we hit the end of October, which was highly unusual. Inventory levels tend to peak in the late summer months each and every year. But because demand fell off a cliff last year, inventory peaked much later than what was expected. And again, I would also expect that to happen this year as well, but we're not going to see this giant surge like we saw last year. Of course, part of the main reason why we're seeing historically low inventory levels though is this right here. New listings last week decreased by about 9% compared to the same week of 2022. That marked the 60th consecutive week of year-over-year decreases dating back to early January of 2022. So therefore, we've had more than a year of weekly decreases of new listings. This is causing inventory to remain at very low levels. What is kind of an interesting dynamic and a change compared to about 4 weeks ago, though, is that the decrease of new listings has been in single digits for the past 3 weeks in a row. This is a night and day difference compared to the previous weeks, though, because starting in or ending in August 5th this year, going all the way back until when was this? July 30th, we saw double-digit decreases on a year-over-year basis. In fact, there was just a handful of days in which we had single-digit decreases. That was December 24th, January 21st, and April 15th this year. Besides that, every other week had double-digit decreases of new listings. Let's also talk about how fast or how slow houses are selling right now. Last week, in fact, it actually took 2 days longer to sell a home compared to the same time frame of 2022. On top of that, houses are taking longer to sell compared to last year, now for 56 consecutive weeks. Again, though, a friendly reminder, this is a lagging indication of our U.S. housing market because this is based on closed home sales. Also, something you guys should be aware of as well, though, is that the difference between this year and last year has actually been getting more narrow. So, for example, just about 2 months ago, days in the market was about 10 days slower compared to 1 year ago, but now it's only 2 days. This is implying, in my personal opinion, that the market was slowing much faster at this time last year compared to this year. Let's also discuss the number of price reductions nationwide compared to just 12 months ago. The percent decrease was actually a decrease of 21.1%. That marks the 13th consecutive week of year-over-year decreases compared to the triple-digit gains we saw to start this year. I was trying to figure out why the number of price reductions has been decreasing ever since June this year. In my opinion, this is really due to two main reasons. Number one, low inventory levels. In other words, we have fewer options of houses to buy, leading to fewer price reductions by home sellers compared to last year. On top of that, number two, price drops were skyrocketing at this time last year. In contrast, the share of price reductions is relatively flat compared to the start this year. Let me share exactly what I mean by this, because here is a chart showing the share of price drops nationwide according to altosresearch.com. To start the year, the share of price drops was at 36%, but right now, the share of price drops is also at 36%, so relatively flat compared to the start this year. However, though, we're still lower though compared to 1 year ago at 36% right now. 12 months ago, the share price drops was 40%, but also when comparing current levels right now at 36%, it's still higher compared to 2 years ago and also compared to 2020 as well. Having said that though, the share right now at about 36% is roughly on par with pre-COVID levels, because back in 2019 at this time, the share was also 36%. And also that was roughly on par with 2018's levels as well. The big change we're seeing this year though, compared to last year, is this right here. The share price drops last year increasing from about 17% in mid-March to 40% by the time we hit early September. Compare that to this year, the drop, or the trough I should say, was around 29% set in May. Now it has only increased to 36%. This again is due to relatively low levels in the number of houses for sale, whereas fewer home sellers are having to reduce their asking prices because there's not a lot of competition for their houses for sale. All right, I know that was a lot to cover in today's video, so here's a summary for you guys, and also I'll provide some predictions and also kind of a general overview about what happened last week regarding the housing market as well. So number one, asking prices were flat compared to 1 year ago. The decrease in prices from a year earlier was very much short-lived. In fact, only 6 weeks in which asking prices nationwide decreased compared to the previous year. This was due to the fact that prices were falling much faster at this time last year compared to this year. And on top of that, we have a low amount of houses for sale, which is supporting home price growth this year. However, though, will that change given the fact that we saw this rise in mortgage rates to around 7% on average for the entire month of August? Number two, housing inventory decreased by 6% year over year last week. That marked the 10th consecutive weekly decrease. Inventory has also barely increased this year. We only have about 38,000 more homes for sale compared to the start this year. That was an increase of about 8% year to date. Compare that to the 89% increase year to date we saw at this time last year. A gain of around 260,000 more homes for sale at this time last year compared to the start of the year last year. Also, new listings have been decreasing year over year now for 60 consecutive weeks. This continued lack of new listings is causing inventory to remain at historically low levels, down by about 50% compared to the same week of 2019. Number three, average 30-year fixed rate mortgage rates were at 7.1% this August compared to 5.2% from a year earlier, according to data from Freddie Mac. Number four, the share price drops is roughly the same as the same week of 2018 and 2019, but it's much higher compared to 2020 and 2021. Number five, houses are taking longer to sell compared to the same time frame in 2022, now for 56 consecutive weeks. So what are some potential huge changes ahead, given the fact that rates have been increasing? And of course, a disclaimer as well, I am not a real estate market fortune teller. I do not have superpowers, although I really wish I did. Number one, average 30-year fixed rates around 1 percentage point higher compared to 1 year ago. This causes a 10% decrease in buyers' purchasing power. Of course, we have a lot of challenges right now, especially for home buyers right now. We have record low housing affordability, low inventory levels of existing houses, elevated rates, as well as a potential of a recession next year. In other words, we have a lot of uncertainty in our housing market and, of course, our U.S. economy as well. Number two, housing affordability is a huge hurdle for home buyers, especially compared to the past several years. So, for example, home prices have increased by about 40% ever since 2020. And of course, average mortgage rates have more than doubled since then as well. Mortgage rates in general have been on the rise since April. And on a national level, according to my own analysis of Redfin's data, home sold prices have increased by about 9% year to date. So therefore, we have rising rates and home prices, which of course is making housing affordability a very big hurdle for home buyers. And in my personal opinion, this is not sustainable. In the future here, we should see seasonality and affordability constraints, which will put downward pressure on home prices for the remainder of the year. Number three, early signs of home buying demand have been absolutely all over the place this year due to the volatility in home prices and, of course, rates this year as well. The most recent data we have based on applications for home loans to buy houses, according to the MBA, is down by 27% year over year. That was for the week ended August 25th. The MBA's purchase index is also very close to the lowest levels going back to April of 1995. In other words, home buying demand is still very, very low. Also, Redfin's most recent data shows that pending home sales nationwide decreased by 14% year over year. And of course, new listings decreased by 10%. So we have a low level of demand meeting a low level supply, making it feel like our housing market overall is very competitive. Also, the National Association of Realtors reported last week, in fact on August 30th, that pending home sales for the month of July compared to July 2022 decreased by 14%. However, though, we had this strange dichotomy in our housing market where in the resale market, we have a lack of houses for sale and we have a low level of closed home sales. In stark contrast, for home sales of brand new home construction, and that's defined by a sales agreement signed between a buyer and a home builder. So this is really acting more like a pending home sale. That increased by 24% this June compared to last June. And also we saw a giant increase of 32% year over year this July. So to briefly summarize that, we're seeing a decrease of pending home sales of existing houses down by about 14%. But compare this to new home construction, contracts being signed increased by 32% this July, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. So it appears that home builders are gaining an advantage right now due to rate buy downs and, of course, due to the low amount of houses for sale in the resale market. My question, though, is how long will this last, though? Because we can't see builders continue to buy down rates when rates are so high right now, very close to the highest levels we've had in about 20 years. Of course, I'll definitely keep you posted with latest developments, of course, but I think we all can agree that the housing market in general is experiencing a lot of volatility. And of course, it appears to be very much rate dependent as well. And of course, a friendly reminder, real estate is local. So the trends I'm sharing in today's video may not pertain to your city, your area, or your street where you're living in the US. Number four, sellers and buyers have exited the housing market, leading to a dip of new listings and contracts being signed, especially compared to the past several years here. The lack of new supply hitting the market since last summer has led to inventory remaining at very low levels. If homeowners continue to decide that now is not a good time to sell their house, that will limit housing inventory. The direction of our US housing market, in my opinion, let me know what you guys think about this, will depend on unemployment, mortgage rates, inventory, and of course, the balance between supply and demand. Number 5, this is probably the most important one. I appreciate you guys for watching today's video and of course for supporting my YouTube channel as well. I've had this channel for, coming up on 4 years now. And of course, it's a lot of work, but I definitely enjoy making YouTube videos and providing, in my personal opinion, the latest housing market trends in an unbiased manner here. Anyways, thank you so much for watching today's video. I appreciate you. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.